A relative minor scale or key is called that because it's related to one of the major scales. So you have a relative minor and a relative major that are kind of connected. There's 12 different notes on the piano, so 12 different notes you can start scales from, which means there's 12 minor keys and there's 12 major keys. And it's like they're paired up. For every major key, there's a relative minor and vice versa. The way it's related is that a major scale and its relative minor both use exactly the same 7 notes. Now that may sound confusing and you may be wondering, well, how can they be different? Why is it not the same scale or the same key then? The difference is that whilst we have the same sequence of notes in the same order, we can just keep looping round and round, we have a new starting point for the scale. That is to say that we have a new root which is just one of the other notes out of those 7. That new note will now sound like home instead of the other one and be the new grounding for the key. The way we hear notes in music is really that we hear them in relation to each other and to a starting point. So we're hearing these same notes in a new context which completely changes our perspective on them. Now that might sound confusing, let me show you what I mean, as it's easier to get when you can see it and hear it. We'll start in the key of C major because being all white notes is usually the clearest way to understand and visualize any new concepts. And we're going to look at its relative minor, which is A minor. So remember, that means A minor uses the same notes as C major. If C major uses all the white notes and runs from C to C, then A minor uses the same notes but runs from A to A. If these are the 7 notes of the major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, if I just take off these top 2 notes, A and B, and put them on the bottom, now this is A minor. You can see I'm just replacing them at the beginning. It's the same notes, just in a different order. Now this A is the new home note, and we hear the other notes in relation to A instead of C, which has a big impact on the sound. This is the sound of C major. It sounds complete on the note C. This is the sound of A minor. It sounds complete on the note A. Now that might be confusing because when I played C, I didn't actually use those 2 notes, I used these 2, but remember they are the same note, so that still counts. If I do this in more than one octave, you see it just overlaps. Here's C, A minor. So hopefully now you can hear what effect the new starting point has had to the sound. It's a very different sound that we can play with and use to create music, perhaps a slightly darker sound. It's like painting a picture with a different colour palette. So whilst in a way being the same key, because they've got the same notes, they're also very different. Now each note in the A minor scale means something different than it did in C. Each note is a new interval. It's important to understand that when you find the relative minor of any major scale in the way that I'm about to show you, from that new starting point, you end up creating a natural minor scale. That means you're using the same pattern or spacing between the notes and the same intervals as we talked about in part 1. We've just arrived there in a different way than we did before. Let's turn A major into A minor using the last method to show you how these 2 things are linked and you actually just end up with the same result. So here's the A major scale. So remember, we flatten the 3rd, the 6th and the 7th notes. Well, in A major, the 3rd, the 6th and the 7th notes happen to be those 3 black keys, those 3 sharps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you take those 3 and flatten them, C sharp, F sharp and G sharp become C, F and G, then we end up in exactly the same place as if we'd used the other method. So A major to A minor is the parallel minor. C major to A minor is the relative minor. To help us do this in any other key just as easily as we did with C to A minor, let's look at what we've done and think about the relationship, how far we've moved, which way. So if we're in any major key, we can find the relative minor. If we're in any minor key, we can find the relative major. Here's what's important to understand about the relationship, but then after that, I'm going to show you a nice, quick, easy way of finding it. So the A minor scale, we can say starts on the 6th note of the major scale. So if we're in C major, we just count up the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So any major scale you're on, find the 6th note, and then play those same notes just starting from there instead. Let's do an example in F major. Here's the F major scale. So F major is all the white notes from F to F except B, which is B flat. So it's a straight line apart from B, which is B flat. So the 6th note of this new scale is D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now, instead of playing F to F, but watching out for B flat, we play from D to D, but watch out for B flat. Now we've got the D natural minor. There's a quicker way to find that 6th note. Instead of counting up 6, you can just go backwards 2 places in the scale. So if we're on the root F, you just go backwards E, D. So that would be root, 7th, 6th. And you get the same answer, D. Or you can say going backwards a minor third, which is just 1.5 whole steps, you'll get the same answer. So F major was all the white notes from F to F, but flatten B. So D minor is all the white notes again, but from D to D, flatten B. Same notes in the same order, new starting point. Do this in any key, just find that new starting note, play the same notes in the same order. Just remember to account for any sharps or flats that are in the scale to start with. Let's say you already knew the D minor scale and you were trying to find what its relative major was. Well, just reverse it. Now D is 1. We can say that the relative major scale starts on the 3rd note of the minor scale. 1, 2, 3. A minor to C was also 3. 1, 2, 3. So there's a really quick way to find the root of the relative major and the relative minor. You just have to remember 2 pieces of information. The first bit, think of minor as being on the left and major as being on the right. And the second bit of information is how far apart they are. So they are a minor 3rd apart, which is 1.5 whole steps. And if you know the first scale to start with, you can think of that distance as moving 2 steps inside that scale. Let's quickly find some roots to make that clear. So if we're on G major, I go down a minor 3rd and I know that the relative minor is E minor. If I'm on A major, I go down a minor 3rd and I know that the relative minor is F sharp minor. And I know to call that F sharp, not G flat, because F to A spans 3 letters, F, G, A. If I'm on D major, down a minor 3rd, I know that B minor is the relative minor. Let's do some minors to majors. If I'm on C minor, go up a minor 3rd to find the relative major, E flat major. Not D sharp because C, D, E spans 3 letters. If I'm on F minor, up a minor 3rd to A flat major. If I'm on B flat minor, up a minor 3rd and I'd get D flat major. So when you have a relative minor and a relative major key, because these keys share the same notes, that means we also use the same key signature when we write music out. So the F major scale, for example, we just played, had 1 flat, and so did its relative minor, D. This is the key signature for both of those scales. And that's the same with all 12 keys as laid out in the circle of fifths. So when you see a key signature on a piece of music, it could actually be either the major or its relative minor, and there's not enough information in just the key signature itself to tell. Either way though, you still have enough information to play all the correct notes. And also sometimes it's possible mid-song for it to feel like one or the other. So with A minor and C major, for example, at some point it could sound like the A is the home note, and another point it might move and sound like the C is the new home note. Sometimes it's a bit ambiguous. You can make an argument for one or the other, or just choose how to think about it, whichever feels most helpful to learning or understanding something. One final but important point is that when you're in a minor key and you see one of these signatures, it may also mean that we might be using one of those common variations of the minor scale I mentioned, and these do not share the exact same notes as the relative major. Only the natural minor fits the major perfectly. We have to adjust it afterwards by going out the key signature, and we use accidentals or flats, sharps and naturals to do that. But more on that in the next video. I hope that was helpful. Please give the video a like if it was. Remember to come back for part 3 and subscribe for more content to help you develop your piano playing. Thanks for watching.